All right. Bruno Gama here from Dads on Fire Project. We are live, the place where we help busy dads get rid of the dad buds, the place where we help busy dads to live a Dads on Fire life. So this past weekend, actually Saturday, was my birthday, and I'm down in Brazil, my hometown with my family. And there is a lesson that I just want to quickly share with you guys here because I think it's an important one. We tend to focus a lot of our time and attention into nutrition and exercise when trying to be healthy, right? And this is definitely a good thing. There is no question about it. But something that I was thinking about, especially with my birthday, was the importance also about social life, relationship with the people who you love, with the people, with your friends, your family, your kids. Living, having these dads on fire life, it's much more, it's much bigger than just nutrition and exercise. And this is something that we are actually going to be talking more about on the show today because we have an awesome guest. His name is Alec, and he's here with us live today as we record it. Are you here live, Alec, right now? Can you hear me well?
Yeah, yep, I hear you clear.
Awesome, man. So first of all, thank you for being here with us. I appreciate your time, man. So how did you start? You have this awesome podcast called First Class Fatherhood. So how did everything start for you?
Well, first of all, thank you, Bruno, very much for giving me the opportunity to come on the podcast here today. And my podcast, my three older boys, three boys. I have three boys and a girl, and they want to be YouTubers. So they watch a lot of YouTube. They're into Dan TDM and all this type of stuff because they watch the video games online and all that. And so I started doing YouTube stuff with my daughter because she was into that open the box kind of deal and open and play with the toys on YouTube. So I tried filming some of that stuff with her. It didn't really go so well, so I was looking for something else, and then I discovered podcasting, which I really wasn't familiar with at all. So I took out a book from the library about podcasting for dummies and read up on it. And it said to stick to things that you know and things that you're passionate about and you deal with on a daily basis. And fatherhood is really something that I'm very passionate about. It is my life, not just a part of my life. So it was very simple. And you really never run out of topics to discuss because it's kind of endless, especially when you're raising four children. So I put it out there, and just as a feel around, and the response was overwhelming right out of the gate. And I was getting hit up from dads all over the country, even all over the world, where they really enjoyed listening to the different aspects of it, just the honesty of it all. And
Okay.
they encouraged me to keep pushing forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And what is really like your mission with the First Class Fatherhood?
It's basically like first class fatherhood, meaning like your income doesn't matter, your race doesn't matter, your religion doesn't matter. What connects us all is that we're fathers, and just being a father and taking on that role makes you a first class father, no matter what spectrum of life you come from, whether you be a waiter or you be a pilot. It's the same. If you're a dad, it connects us all together, and we're all first class fathers, as long as that's you make it your mission in life to be a dad, and it's important to you. I think we're all first class dads. It's the biggest role you're ever going to have in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the name. It really connects with what we do here inside of the Dads on Fire Life because I truly believe on the same principles. Like we have one shot and we have to make the best living this dads what I call the Dads on Fire life, where we have amazing health, relationship, we have purpose of life and wealth, and we try to have it all. We strive for everything, right? So I was talking to you offline here, Alec. I wanted to do a little bit differently today. I just want to go free flow and talk about a bunch of subjects. Let's start with parenting. That's a good one. So how do you make sure? Like, what's your take into being a better dad every single day? How do you go about striving for being a better dad?
Well, first of all, it comes from recognizing my failures as a father, because that's one of the things that I think maybe sometimes we get discouraged by, but there's many of them. And, just going through the experience of having one child to two and then two to three being the most difficult one for my wife and I, and the experiences that you have. And you have to learn to take it really just one day at a time and each experience as it comes. And when something like that I talk about with other dads on my podcast a lot is that Something like my father would never have done in his generation is really apologize to their children. And I kind of find myself doing that quite often because I recognize when I make mistakes, especially when I punish the wrong kid for the wrong thing. And I don't just let it go and try to say, oh, I'm too good to apologize for it. I recognize the failure and I try to learn and grow along with them. And that's really, something that's never going to be complete. I mean, fatherhood is something that's going to be something I identify with for the rest of my life. So it's a learning process. I understand it as a learning process, and I look forward to it with great anticipation.
Yeah, awesome, man. One thing inside of the Dads on Fire project really that we talk a lot is the importance of the environment. I truly believe into this. And growing up, I had an awesome environment, but at the same time, like looking back into hindsight, of course, my father did the best that he could for me, right? But there is a lot of things that now that I'm a father, I'm doing a little bit differently. And how do you go back and you look at, okay, this is the way I grew up, and now I am on a situation where I have kids. You have 3, right? So it's
I have 4. Yeah,
I have 4. Sorry, I have 4.
It comes full circle in a lot of ways, and it's different. We're not the same in the same lifestyle. Like I guess, in a sense, like the world has kind of moved on from the way we view moms and women as far as parents. Where kind of like that Alice Cramden role from The Honeymooners. We no longer expect the wife to just be the homemaker and just that be her only role. We expect her to. She's progressed, but the father, we kind of look at as the guy that's just the guy that's the breadwinner and all that. But his role has changed as well. Most dads that I talk to, they're involved in changing the diapers and taking their kids everywhere. And they're more of a dad than their dad was. And that seems to be the same, experience that I hear from a lot of fathers, especially fathers my age with multiple children. And it's a different way of living. And so it's kind of almost like trying to compare basketball players from this generation to the last generation. It doesn't really gel together. It's a totally different experience for the dads today.
Yeah, it's a different word, definitely. And growing up, when like from 0 to 7, there is a lot of research that I've been studying that says that this is a super important period of our lives. We are making the subconscious mind, right? That's when we are forming all of the habits, the things that we really don't even know where it comes from. So now we are adults here, we are fathers, and we want to change. We want to break some habits. We want to break the habits of being ourselves. Do you have any tip related to habits formation or even breaking bad habits that we might have in our lives?
Yeah, well, I talked about it on my podcast. I struggle with alcohol. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and that's definitely one that has been a challenge for me. And one that now, as I age and my kids are getting ready to hit their teenage years, and they're going to get ready to get introduced to all this type of stuff in their life, that kind of makes me refocus on my own struggles that I've had with it. And I think that my experience in that area will be of great use to them as they get ready to hit all them difficult moments.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for sharing that, man. So how do you work this on your own life? Because I know there is a lot of dads who struggle with the same things, right? They have issues with alcohol. How did you recognize this? How did you go about, and how long have you been without alcohol, if you may ask?
Well, right now it's 72 days, but before that it was it was a year, and then before that it was 3 years, and there's times where I go and I slip and I have relapses, and I recognize them right away, and I do what I have to do to get right back on the wagon and start doing the next right thing. And it's important to recognize it. Honesty really is where it all comes from. If you're denial is the biggest part of the disease. Really, when you don't recognize it yourself, then you're just lying to yourself, and it becomes just a mess for everybody and toxic for everybody around you. So identifying it and being honest with yourself that, hey, I have a problem here and I got to do something about it. That's really the key to all of it. I mean, without that, there's really no hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any like practical tips that you like to share related to breaking habits or even making good ones? Let's say somebody wants to stop having a lot of sugar, or somebody wants to start to move their body a little more. Do you have any anything that comes to your mind in terms of sharing with us?
I really think if it's something that you really want to do, it's kind of like just do it. Don't stop making excuses. Take I listened to Jocko Willing's podcast. I've been lucky to have I had 6 Navy SEALs on my podcast, and they have that mentality of no excuses and just extreme ownership of taking responsibility for your own life, your own actions. Don't point the finger. Don't blame anybody else. And read. I'm an avid reader. I read about a book a week, and I really encourage that. Read, improve your mind. If you want to get better at something, take steps to get better at it. Don't just wait for somebody to tell you how to do it. Go and do it. I mean, we have the keys right here. We have the internet. We have access to so much material that is really right there at your fingertips. You just really have to have the drive to really want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's funny that you mention excuses, because I just made a live video inside of the Facebook group that we have for dads, talking about what the title was exactly this: excuses or results. Which one do you want? So I went on this kind of like almost like on a rant about, hey, you can't have both. It's impossible to keep your excuses and get the results that you're looking for. You have to decide which one do you want. And both options are totally valid. I totally get that you are busy, that you don't have the time, that you have your kids, that you have a career. But hey, this is never gonna stop it. And maybe when we die, maybe we're not going to be having challenge. But as far as I'm concerned, life is always going to be happening. We always going to be having this challenge. So you gotta decide. And like you mentioned, you have to just do it sometimes, right? Just do it. So
right, and just accept the fact that it is going to be a struggle. And once you realize that, like each day, you're never going to conquer life. It's never going to be over, and you're going to say, hey, "Okay, I won. I got it all," and that never happens. So it's just recognize on a day-to-day basis, really.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you had a lot of Navy SEALs on your podcast, right? Can you just like quickly share some of like the things that the biggest lessons that you learned from these guys, because they have super amazing mindsets, right?
Yeah, and that's really what was awesome, really, to have them. I had Rob O'Neill, the guy that shot Osama bin Laden, on the podcast. And it's just really the mentality, the focus. From Brandon Webb talks about a lot. He talked about the focus on total focus of what you're doing, and be in the moment that you're in. Don't be, basically don't be at home when you're at work. Don't be at work when you're at home. And it's like, just basically try to keep the mindset focused on what you're really doing, and don't make excuses. Really take complete ownership for your life and what you're doing. It's really that whole philosophy, that whole mindset.
Yeah, that's a big one that you just said, because I catch myself a lot when I'm working or when I'm with my family, and trying to be present as much as I can, and separate life when I'm with my kids, when I'm with my daughter, when I'm with my wife, being completely present with them, right? And when I'm at work, and it's a struggle. It's a constant learning process, right? How can you expand a little more into what you just said about this?
I think it was Zig Ziglar, maybe. I forget if I have the wrong guy, but they explained it kind of in a sense. If you have the sun is beating down, and you have a magnifying glass, and you have a piece of paper in front of you, and you move the magnifying glass around like this, nothing's going to happen. But if you stay steady the magnifying glass in one position and focus it, the sun will hit it, and it will start burning the paper. And it's basically, if you put all your energy and all your focus in one direction, the results are going to be incredible. But if you're all over the map, then you're really not aiming at any target. You're kind of all over the place. You're disoriented in what you're doing. So it's trying to keep that focus, that beam honed in on what you're actually doing in the present moment instead. And it's so hard, because we seem to, a lot of us hold on to a lot of things from the past, and we let that define us. And it's hard not to do that. Especially in everyday life, because other people are going to constantly remind you of who you were, mistakes you made, and you don't have to live by them. They may ping you by them because it makes them feel better about themselves for the moment, but it doesn't define who you are. You can always change. Who you are today is not who you were yesterday. And sometimes we get caught with the trap of looking into the future, and we're so busy focusing on what could be, what might be, and we don't focus on right now what we are doing. And it's a struggle, and it's a challenge for all of us, especially when you have children and a wife and a job and a mortgage, and it's hard to balance all that out and to stay focused.
Yeah, I love this laser focus, and makes like burn the place, right? That's awesome, man. Thank you for sharing that. So let's shift a little bit, and let's talk about health for a little bit. As you know, there is scary statistics right now. And this is not just about dads. This is about the whole population. Right now, 90% of dads, they can't find a way to maintain their fat loss. This is just one example. 7 out of 10, they are either overweight or obese. Depression, anxiety, chronic diseases, diabetes, heart problems, Alzheimer's, cancer, all of those scary things that we really don't want to get, but it's out there, right? How do you see this? What's really going on with our health in our society? And this, you are in the USA right now, and I live in New York. I am in Brazil currently at this moment as we record this, but it's not just in the USA. It's pretty much everywhere right now. There is this health epidemic going on. Can you share with us what's going on, man?
I honestly think a lot of it is as the technology has gotten better, it has made us a lot lazier, and a lot of things are done for us that were never done for us in the past. So we kind of rely on the technology, and we kind of feel, I've never struggled with weight or losing weight. I've always been thin. I've always been active. I mean, I've never struggled with weight loss in my life. So it's hard for me to kind of get that perspective of what that's like to battle weight gain and obesity, which I know that it is a struggle for so many. But if I had to take a guess, it would just be that we've become very complacent, very lazy in our lifestyle, just dependent on everything working, doing the work for us. And then instead of eating right and exercising, we want to take the pill or we want to do the fast route, the liposuction or whatever it may be. We always think there's an easier way to get it done without actually having to do the changes, make the changes, and put the hard work in to actually get the shape that we want. And I think a lot of it has to do with the food that we're eating. I think that the processed food that we're introduced to has a lot to do with that. I mean, it's so much quicker for families to stop at McDonald's and feed the family for $20 on the dollar menu than it is to go to the health food store and buy $80 worth of health food and then feed the family. So I think there's definitely challenges, and a lot of it is the instant fix. A lot of it is the quick fix. So I'll just grab this because I'm hungry, and we eat the calories we shouldn't be eating. We eat the fats that we shouldn't be eating. And I think that plays a lot into it. And also, like I said, with the technology, it's made us lazy.
Yeah. And this quick thing is one of the things that I really hit the most when doing my content, when talking to dads overall, is really like, hey, it's normal. Like, you are human, and humans naturally, the brain will want to have quick fixes. So it's almost that you gotta go against your nature on a way to succeed at this journey, because it's easy to, hey, let's lose 7 pounds in 7 days here, but then what happens after that? So that's a huge topic, man. It's like
going back to the SEALs that I've had on the show, one of their things that they say is you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable, and being uncomfortable sometimes, feeling miserable can be your best friend at times, because it's something that our bodies are so used to. Just like, you don't want any pain, you don't want anything that pushes the limits of your body. But really, everybody that has had some success has had to go through a process. Like you don't get to elite levels without experiencing some level of discomfort. And if you can learn to embrace that discomfort, then the sky's the limit.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have a class inside of the project, which is called the danger zone. And the danger zone is this comfortable zone that almost everybody is right now, right? They just like, okay, I got my job, I have my relationship here, but, they just feeling comfortable. But deep inside, they are burning for something more, right? And the only way to get to this place with more is really by being uncomfortable, like you just mentioned, which is counterintuitive on a way, but that's the way to do it, right? That's the way to grow. So let's shift a little bit here, Alec. Let's talk about happiness and purpose of life. Things like let's go a little bit deeper here. I really didn't know my purpose. Let's put this. I don't really like this word purpose, but anyway, let's use this, right? But until like around 2011. That's when I was back in New York City. I was actually playing tennis with my friend Paul, and Paul asked me, hey, have you watched this guy on the internet called Sean Croxton talking about some underground health stuff. And I was, no, let me check it out. And that day I started to really learn things that I've never seen in my life, not just about nutrition, not just about exercise, but about mindset, creating habits, behavior change, the power of the environments, accountability, motivation, the environments, all of those things that we mentioned a little bit here. How do you see this topic of purpose? Do you have a purpose? How can we find purpose? Is that even important?
Hold on, I still got you there, Bruno. I lost the audio there.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep, I got you now. I think. Hold on.
Did you hear the question?
Yeah, it was about the purpose, defining purpose and stuff like that.
Yeah, so how do you see this topic of purpose? Is this even important? Everybody has to find their purpose. Like, do you have a purpose? Like, if I ask you?
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, it's kind of like that's kind of something that changed in my life of becoming a father. That kind of really made me reevaluate my life because I never even planned on having kids. I didn't want to be a dad. I didn't, think that was ever going to be something that happened in my life. And when it did, it kind of shifted my focus, in my life. And it does give you a purpose. But I know that also that this is something that I'm not there yet at that level. But as the kids get older and take on their own lives, then you kind of, a lot of dads are left wondering like, well, okay, now what's my purpose? So it's like everyone is kind of always looking for that next thing that's going to be, that drives them. What's my purpose now? Like you work a job for a certain year, like a certain number of years, then you retire. Okay, I'm not that anymore. Now what's my purpose? And then you find another role to play, and then that becomes your purpose. So the purpose always changes, really. It's never just like, oh, I was put here for this. And everyone's kind of, I guess, maybe trying to find that one thing that they're here for. Like, what's my reason for being here, in a sense? And I don't know if that's something that you're ever really going to find, or if there's ever going to be one thing that you're going to be comfortable with. And, oh, this is definitely it. I'm going to do this for 90 years. This is my purpose, and that's it. I think the life's journey is more of about a mystery, more of about experience and learning to grow, change, and develop, and experience new things. You just said, like, in 2011, you discovered something that you never did before, and it changed who you were at that. You would never, introduced to that before. So you don't know in 2021 what you might come across that changes your purpose. So I think purpose is always shifting. It's always changing, just like life is. So at the moment, my purpose is raising 4 children and growing them into young men and a young woman. I mean, that's really my purpose right now in life. And my goals are to create healthy habits for my children and hopefully leading by example.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this, man. Like this concept of constantly finding and creating your purpose as life comes. We are always changing. And who knows, right now, that's what you said. Right now, your purpose is like really related to your family, but you don't really know, like 5-10 years from today, what you probably are going to be doing. And you might say, oh, this is actually, now it's my purpose. I love this. What about happiness, Alec? Sorry. How do you see this topic of happiness? This is something also very a passion of mine, and something that I've always considered myself to be a very happy guy. And this topic is like, okay, I talk to a lot of dads, and they like, when I get this body or this health or this house or this whatever it is that they have in their minds, I am going to be happy. And every time I hear that, actually I want to think, I want to say, to scream to this person, to this guy, like, hey, wait a second. Actually, it's the opposite. It's the other way around. You gotta be happy first, and everything else might happen naturally. And so I don't know if you see what I'm saying here, but how do you see? Let's start with happiness, just overall. Like, what is the role of happiness in your life? How do you see this topic?
I think definitely when it comes to that, first of all, is that you have to learn to make yourself happy, and you can't rely on other people to be responsible for your happiness. I think that's a mistake that gets a lot of people trapped with that, when if they and again, with passing the blame to somebody else and not taking the responsibility for your own happiness and making yourself happy. And pretty much what's going to happen in life, I think it was Jim Rohn who says that, like, what happens to us all, and the difference is really how you handle it, how you react to it. You can choose to be happy and you can choose to be sad. I mean, you really have a choice to be made here with a lot of it, and it's really how you look at it. I mean, everyone looks at things and sees something different, and if you can learn to start looking for, hey, something bad has occurred, but that means that something good is going to happen out of it, because opposites are always at play in just about everything that exists. So learning to say, okay, this was bad, what is the good? And always constantly be looking for it, and then trying to, if you're struggling with something, find something that has made you happy, go back as far as you have to go in your life to find, I think there's another SEAL, Goggins, who says he reaches into his, I forget what he calls it, but basically, look at some of the accomplishments that you've had in your life. Dig a cookie jar, he calls it, and reach into some of the accomplishments that you've had when you're having those dark moments and say, hey, wait a minute, I did this or I did that. And remind yourself that, you know what, I've been happy before, and find those places to make you happy when you're struggling. And it's easier said than done, but if you make a habit of trying to make yourself happy, then you'll be happy more often.
Yeah, there is an amazing book that comes to my mind. It's not really about happiness, but I really love it. It's called The Little Book of Clarity. I forgot the author, but it's an unbelievable book. I read, I think, last year. So for the dads listening right now or watching, grab that book. Really, really good. What about relationship, man? That's the last topic that I want to talk to you today here. What do you do to make sure that you're having deep, meaningful relationship with your kids, with your wife, with your friends, with the people who you are around?
I think it takes work. I mean, it's definitely something that you have to work at. You have to plan for. It's not something that you can just kind of let go and just think that it's something that's going to always be there, because there's times, my own kids, my oldest son and my youngest, they're at each other's throats half the time. And it's the relationship, they love one another, but at the same time, they could strangle one another. And it's trying to plan for things to bring that bond together, or give them that time apart. Know when it's time to be apart. Know when it's time to come together. And it's different for everybody. There's no one way that it works for any family. There's no one relationship manifest that's going to work for all families. Every family has their own struggles. We're all fighting a different battle here, and nobody is perfect here. And it's just learning to try to get along with one another as best as possible. Pray together, and learn to live with one another as best as possible.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for the dad who is struggling right now with in terms of the connection with his wife? Like I am on my second marriage right now, and I remember, like, in my first marriage, there was a point where I would come back. I was still in university, and I would come back home and just lying down on my bed, put the pillow and just try to take a nap. And I could not even take a nap because I was just like under this depression that was really hard time, right? And I know that a lot of dads right now, they're facing similar situation. Maybe they need to have a divorce. Maybe not. Maybe they just have to work the marriage that they're having right now, right? Do you have any words for these dads?
You know what? I'll be honest. I could use some words of advice from somebody myself. I mean, I'm still learning in this process. My wife and we're going through a rough moment in our life right now. And like I said, trying to balance all this, raising 4 kids, full-time jobs, kids are in school, kids have activities. It's communication and honesty really is the only thing that you can do. Those are the 2 main things. Try to hold on to those as long as you can, because once they go, I mean, it's difficult to mend the relationship at that point. It really is. So, I mean, try to be open, always be honest, say how you feel, communicate with one another, and try to respect one another as best as possible.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like those 2 words, like, it's so freaking important. Like those are the 2 words that I carry with on my relationship now that I didn't have on the previous one. So being honest and communicating every single time is super important, right?
Yes.
So do you have Alec any like big lesson since you start the first class fatherhood, or really like any lesson from your life that would you like to share with us that I haven't asked you?
No, just that it's really that it's okay to fail, and almost going back to that, be comfortable being uncomfortable. Don't look at the failures as so extreme and be so scared by them, and don't deny them and try to run away from them. Face them, recognize the failure, make a note of it, and you have something to draw on now in that experience for the next time that it comes, and you'll be better prepared for it the next time. It's a learning process, and we grow so much more by our failures than we do by our accomplishments. We learn so much more by the failures. So just learning to be comfortable with the struggles that they come in. It's not the end of the world. Everything will come to an end, and a new beginning will happen. You know, it can only be night for so long, and the sun comes up again. So just in those dark moments, hold on and hang in there.
Yeah. Awesome, man. So before I ask you where people can find you and be in touch with you, one thing, okay, if you can say one thing here for the dads who wants to have a Dads on Fire life, who wants to have a first-class fatherhood, right? What would you say to these dads?
I would just say be honest and be open with how you're feeling. Communicate with your children. Let them know how you feel. If you've messed up, tell them that you've done so, and constantly work to get better. Try to be better tomorrow than you were today. Instead of trying to be better than the next dad, be better than the dad you were yesterday. That's really, that's what I would strive for, and my suggestion would be.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much, man. So where can people find you about what you do? How can people be in touch with you if they want to hang out with you? Let's put this online.
You can find me basically anywhere you can hear podcasts. I'm on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play. I'm on Spotify, First Class Fatherhood. You can go to the website, firstclassfatherhood.com. I'm really active more on Twitter than I am anywhere else. Like I said, I didn't really even have any of these profiles or social media accounts. You're right. It's all, I'm still terrible with Instagram and Facebook. So Twitter is kind of really where I do my main social mediaing, I guess, or whatever you'd call it. I'm at Alec Lace there. I mean, you can find me on Instagram at Alec Lace and Facebook Alec Lace. But really, if you want to communicate with me, DM me. It's open to the public there on Twitter, and I usually respond to everybody that does. So I welcome all the comments, suggestions, and the negativity too. I mean, that helps me a lot more than the positives do. That just say, hey, great job. I love that. But when someone says, hey, why don't you try to change this, or why don't you think about talking about that, that helps me in so many ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. I super appreciate you being here with us today. It was awesome. So guys, go ahead, go check it out. Alec Podcast, First Class Fatherhood. It's awesome. In the meantime, make sure that you're taking action so that you can become a Dads on Fire. I'll see you on the next one. Have a great day. Peace.